Welcome to Live Interactive English. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sam.
And today we are looking at the story of Moses.
Okay.
This is a story a lot of people might have heard about before and might know some of the things that happen within this story.
Yes.
Like, Sam, have you heard this story before?
I can remember this story from a very, very long time ago. I think this is one of the earlier stories that they teach kids in Bible study or Bible school and this kind of stuff because it's got a lot of interesting things that happen. I don't remember a ton of it, but I think a lot of the kind of visuals that you might remember are bad things happen and there's something that happens with the sea, and probably when you hear that you'll go, oh, I do remember this story because there's a very famous thing that happens with the ocean and all of that. So I remember bits and pieces, but not a ton.
Yeah, I mean, me as well. I know a lot of it from popular culture, from watching TV shows where they make references or have parts that mirror the story. So have things that happen in the same way as in this story. And so that's mostly where I know the story from.
Yeah, and I think I also remember this story from when I was a kid. There was a movie called Prince of Egypt that came out, and that was all about this story of Moses. And that was pretty good. It was a good movie. So that's where I remember most of this.
All right, well, I guess we're going to get a refresher today because we're going to read this story of Moses when we get into today's episode.
The story of Moses begins in ancient Egypt, where the Pharaoh had become fearful of the Hebrews living there. Their numbers had grown so large that he feared they might rise up against him. Desperate to maintain power, the Pharaoh forced the Hebrews into slavery and ordered the death of all male Hebrew babies. During these dark times, Moses was born. His mother, in an attempt to keep him safe, hid him for 3 months. However, she grew scared she could no longer hide him. So, she decided to place him in a basket on the Nile River and trusted that God would protect him.
Hello there. Today we are looking at day 1 of our story, the story of Moses.
Yeah, and so you can see maybe you might not know how to pronounce that name if you just looked at it, but it is Moses, and if you've heard it or you hear somebody say it, then you'll probably go, oh yes, I do remember that person. So this is the story of Moses. And so we jump in and it says, the story of Moses begins in ancient Egypt, where the Pharaoh had become fearful of the Hebrews living there. And again, Pharaoh, if you're not quite so sure, Pharaoh's like the king of all the Egyptians. And he's starting to get a little bit nervous because there's also another kind of group of people that lives there called the Hebrews. And it says, their numbers had grown so large that he feared they might rise up against him. Yes, and so this is saying that the Hebrews, their numbers are growing. There's more and more of them. And what it kind of leaves out is that the Hebrews really were kind of the slaves. They were the ones who were working and doing all the hard labor and maybe not getting paid or getting paid very, very little. So the Pharaoh was kind of in control of them and having them work. So he was starting to get nervous that they might rise up against him. And if somebody or a group of people rises up against somebody else, that basically means to rebel or to revolt or to say, I don't like what this ruler or government or something is doing, so I'm going to take some action and fight back against them and try to change my situation.
So let's see what happens next. Desperate to maintain power, the Pharaoh forced the Hebrews into slavery and ordered the death of all male Hebrew babies. Okay, so he was desperate to maintain power. So desperate is an adjective. And when we say that someone is desperate, then we mean that they are feeling hopeless or are in a very difficult situation that's almost impossible to overcome. But when we say that someone is desperate to do something, we mean that they have a great need or desire to do something. So in this case, the Pharaoh really needs to keep his power. He feels that he can't lose power, so he needs to do something about it. Another example sentence, the team was desperate to win the last game.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。这次要读的是 The Story of Moses， 摩西的故事。那这个故事的背景是在古埃及，那里的法老开始担心居住在当地的希伯来人，因为他们的人数增加到非常多，法老担心他们可能会起来反抗他。那法老就非常想要维持权力，他强迫希伯来人当奴隶，并下令处死所有希伯来的男婴儿。好，文中用到 rise up against somebody or something， 这表示反抗某人或者是起义推翻，可能推翻政府啊、权威等等。这时候 Sam 老师用到两个动词 rebel 和 revolt。Rebel 是拼作 R-E-B-E-L， Revolt 是拼作 R-E-V-O-L-T。那这两个动词都可以表达反叛、造反的意思。再看到课文单字 desperate，desperate 是形容非常想要的或拼命的。好，那么课文它用到说Desperate 逗号 The Pharaoh forced 那这边我们就要来学习形容词逗号主词加动词分词构句的用法。当前后子句主词相同，我们可以省略其中一个主词跟连接词，然后把主词后面的动词改为分词。如果动词是主动，用现在分词 V-I-N-G， 被动用过去分词 PP。举例来说 She was upset and she locked herself in her room。我们现在省略连接词 and， 那省略前半句的主词 she， 把动词 was 改成现在分词 being， 句子会变成 being upset, she locked herself in her room。 现在 being 还可以进一步省略哦，那就只留下了形容词 upset， 简化成Upset, she locked herself in her room. 她很不开心，把自己锁在房间里。好，那这时候就形成了形容词逗号主词加动词的句型咯。我们接回到课文中。
Okay, so we have this situation kind of set up. We've got the Pharaoh. He's worried that the Hebrews might kind of revolt or rebel against him. And so he's trying to keep them all pushed down. And he just did something really terrible and said that all the male Hebrews needed to be killed. And so it's a whole mess right now. And so the next part says, during these dark times, Moses was born. His mother, in an attempt to keep him safe, hid him for 3 months. So Moses is born during the time where, well, males are not supposed to continue living, but his mom, of course, doesn't want anything to happen to him, so she hides him and tries to keep him safe. And so we have this phrasing, in an attempt to, plus a verb. So in our case, in an attempt to keep Moses safe, she hid him away. And this is just another way to use the word attempt, which means to try to do something. So you can attempt to do something, or you could say in an attempt to, and then you say what you're trying to do. So again, here, she is trying, she's attempting to keep him safe, or in an attempt to keep him safe, she will do this.
So she's already hid him for 3 months, but let's see how she keeps him safe. However, she grew scared she could no longer hide him. So she decided to place him in a basket on the Nile River and trusted that God would protect him.
在这一段黑暗时期，摩西出生了。他的母亲为了保护他的安全，把他藏了3个月。但是因为害怕自己再也藏不住他，就决定把他放在一个篮子里，让他漂浮在尼罗河上，并相信上帝会保护他。哇，这要有很强大的信仰，才会让3个月的婴儿就漂流在尼罗河上。这边还有一个重点是 in an attempt to 加上原形动词，这表示试图想要做某事。attempt 在这边当名词，表示企图尝试。举例来说 ，She put on her earphones in an attempt to block out the noise. 她戴上耳机，试图隔绝噪音。好，接回课文中。
Okay, so she's kind of leaving it in the hands of God. She must have quite a lot of faith to be able to put her baby in a basket on a river and say bye-bye, especially when the baby is only 3 months old. That's pretty small. A baby needs its parents.
Also, the Nile River has things like crocodiles living in it, and it's not a place you want to leave a baby even near the Nile River.
No, yes. So Moses' mom must really trust that God has special plans for Moses to be able to just kind of ship him down the river and say, good luck.
So I wonder what will happen, but we'll have to wait until after the break to find out.
The basket floated along the Nile until it reached the Pharaoh's daughter, who was bathing nearby. She found the baby, named him Moses, and raised him as a prince in the Pharaoh's palace. As Moses grew older, he watched the suffering of his people, the Hebrews, at the hands of the Pharaoh. One day, while walking among the workers, he witnessed an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. In a rush of anger, Moses struck the Egyptian and killed him. Realizing the danger of his actions, Moses fled to the desert and left his life as a prince in the palace far behind.
Okay, so we are back and we have just sent a baby floating down the Nile. And so we are hoping that Moses' mom is correct and that, her God has something that's in store for Moses and going to keep him safe, because it's not a good place for a little 3-month-old baby to be on the Nile River in a basket.
That's right. Well, let's see what happened. The basket floated along the Nile until it reached the Pharaoh's daughter, who was bathing nearby. Well, I would think meeting a family member of the Pharaoh would be the last thing that his mom would want, because the Pharaoh's the one trying to kill him.
True.
All right, well, the basket floated along the river, so we have a word here which is to float, which is a verb, which means to rest on the surface of water without sinking. So, like a boat will float on the water. You can also float in the air, like, for example, a balloon that moves slowly in the air without touching the ground is floating. Now, we wouldn't say that an airplane is floating because it's moving quickly, so things that float usually move slowly and sort of softly through the air or through the water. An example sentence, I watched as the paper boat floated away.
Okay, so like we said, maybe not the best place for him to be close to the Pharaoh, but also maybe the best place to be. Well, let's see. She, meaning the Pharaoh's daughter, found the baby, named him Moses, and raised him as a prince in the Pharaoh's palace. Okay, so we got pretty lucky here. She kind of kept him as her own and made him part of the Pharaoh's kind of family, basically, and raised him as a prince. So I would say that was a pretty lucky situation compared to what it could have been. And so she decided to keep him and raise him as a prince in the Pharaoh's palace. And a palace is just a really big, amazing place that usually kings and queens live. You can say a king and a queen live in a castle. You might say that they live in a palace. Usually it kind of depends on where you are, where this king and queen live, to kind of decide which word you're going to use. But a palace is basically a giant, awesome house that some type of royalty might live in. And our example sentence says, the king and queen lived in a grand palace.
刚刚说摩西的母亲把它放在篮子里，这个篮子沿着尼罗河漂流，直到飘到了法老女儿的身边。他刚好正在附近沐浴。那当他发现这个婴儿时，把他取名为摩西，并在法老的宫殿里把他当作王子抚养长大。好，单字 float 是动词，表示漂浮或者是使漂流、漂移，它可以当及物或不及物用。Palace 则是指宫殿或皇宫。那我们接着回到课文中。
As Moses grew older, he watched the suffering of his people, the Hebrews, at the hands of the Pharaoh. One day, while walking among the workers, he witnessed an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. Okay, so I wonder how he still remembers that.
I was just going to ask that. I was like, how did he even know that he is not part of the Pharaoh's family? I can't remember.
Well, okay, yeah, because maybe he's got a very good memory for a 3 months old.
Yes, maybe.
All right. So it says here that he witnessed an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. So a witness, or to witness something, means to see something happen. And usually we use this word when you see a crime or something bad happening, something that shouldn't be done. Just like in the case of seeing an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, that's a bad thing. So he didn't just see it, he witnessed it. We have an example sentence. Sam witnessed the accident and called for help.
Oh, I'm glad I could help. Anyway, so again, he knows he's Hebrew and he knows that they're not being treated that well. And so it says, in a rush of anger, Moses struck the Egyptian and killed him. Okay, so he wanted to help and then maybe went a little too far, and now he knows that this could maybe not be a good situation, which is what we see in the next part where it says, realizing the danger of his actions, Moses fled to the desert and left his life as a prince in the palace far behind. Okay, so again, he knows that he made some big trouble. He's worried he might get in trouble or something bad could happen to him. So he runs away. And he did this in a rush of anger. So if you say in a rush of something, it just basically means that this feeling kind of all of a sudden took over you and you didn't really think about it. It just kind of popped up because a rush, doing something in a rush is like doing something in a hurry. So if you're talking about a rush of emotions, then whatever that emotion is, it kind of just popped up really quickly. You didn't have time to necessarily think about it. So in a rush of anger, he killed this Egyptian, and so now he's running away.
Right, so he's running away or he's fleeing. So we said in the story that Moses fled to the desert. So fled is the past tense of the verb flee. And to flee means to run away quickly from something, usually from some kind of danger or something that can cause someone or something harm. So we have an example sentence which is, the animals fled from the forest to escape the fire.
随着摩西逐渐长大，他看到自己的同胞，也就是希伯来人受到法老折磨。有一天，他亲眼目睹一名埃及人殴打一名希伯来人，一怒之下，摩西出手打死了那名埃及人。摩西意识到这个行为的危险性，于是他就逃到了沙漠，放弃他在宫殿里的王子生活。那单字 witness 这个动词表示亲眼看见或是目睹，尤其是指这种看到犯罪或事故等等。那 witness 后面可以接名词或是接受词再加 VING。下一个动词 flee 表示逃跑逃离，那它的三态是 flee fled fled。我们补充一下，文中用 in a rush of something， 这是表达说某种情绪啊或感觉突然爆发。那 rush 在这边就是表达突然的一阵强烈情感，所以文中这个 in a rush of anger 就可以表达一怒之下的语义。介华课文中。
Yes, and so we see this is something really bad for him to have left his life as a prince, because you would think that maybe as a prince that you kind of can get away with a lot of stuff, but he feels really worried that this could really make some trouble. So he's running away, leaving everything behind, and going out into the desert. So I don't even know, how's that going to turn out for him?
I would think going to the desert won't be great, but you know what? We're going to find out because we have a part 2 next time, and we'll see you then.
The story of Moses begins in ancient Egypt, where the Pharaoh had become fearful of the Hebrews living there. Their numbers had grown so large that he feared they might rise up against him. Desperate to maintain power, the Pharaoh forced the Hebrews into slavery and ordered the death of all male Hebrew babies. During these dark times, Moses was born. His mother, in an attempt to keep him safe, hid him for 3 months. However, she grew scared she could no longer hide him. So, she decided to place him in a basket on the Nile River and trusted that God would protect him. The basket floated along the Nile until it reached the Pharaoh's daughter, who was bathing nearby. She found the baby, named him Moses, and raised him as a prince in the Pharaoh's palace. As Moses grew older, he watched the suffering of his people, the Hebrews, at the hands of the Pharaoh. One day, while walking among the workers, he witnessed an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. In a rush of anger, Moses struck the Egyptian and killed him. Realizing the danger of his actions, Moses fled to the desert and left his life as a prince in the palace far behind.
最后，我们来复习今天课文里的单字文法。单字的部分有 desperate， 它是形容词，形容非常想要的、拼命的。float 动词，表示漂浮或者使漂流、漂移。Palace 是宫殿、皇宫，它是名词。Witness 是动词，表示亲眼看见、目睹。Flee 也是动词，表示逃跑、逃离。那么文法的部分，我们第一个学到了分词构句的用法。当前后子句主词相同，可以省略其中一个主词跟连接词，然后把主词后面的动词改分词。当形成了 being 形容词逗号主词加动词的句型结构时，这个 being 还可以进一步省略。第二个我们学到了 in an attempt to 加原形动词，这表示试图想要做某事。好，那以上是今天的讲解，同学们别走开，马上回来哦。
Winnie, I got your favorite pizza.
Nice! There's pineapple on this.
It's a Hawaiian pizza.
Absolutely not. The only fruit that should go on a pizza is tomato. I am not eating this.
Well, what are you gonna do now?
Well, I guess I should DIY a pizza. Homemade does taste better.
Winnie, the dough has risen.
Yes, and now it is finally time.
I know, time for toppings.
No, we still have to shape our dough. So please lightly flour the work surface. Now we will shape our dough into a circle because today's pan is a circle shape, okay? Use that to roll it out. It's time to transfer it into our pan.
Now is it time for toppings?
Almost. We have to put on sauce before we put on toppings because it's kind of like your glue. Okay, so just put one ladleful, spread it around, but not too much. Leave a little on the edge. Now we can put our toppings. So we have shredded cheese, we have sliced pepperoni, whatever you like. And also if you like to live dangerously, some hot chili peppers. Sprinkle it around. We have some pepperoni. Okay, and you could even put another sprinkle of cheese on top just to finish it off.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, now that we have topped off our pizza, we are finally ready to put it in our preheated oven for 15 to 20 minutes or until golden brown. And then after we take it out of the oven, we'll let it rest for 5 minutes.
Okay,
Let's go.
ta-da! Our pizza's finally ready.
So Kiki, how many slices of pizza do you want?
Oh, that's something important to remember. When we're referring to pieces of pizza, the measure word we use is slice. So I would like 1 slice of pizza, please.
Okay, very good. I will make sure there are extra toppings on your slice. What does topping mean? That's when something goes on top of something. So today our toppings were cheese and pepperoni.
Today we also saw Winnie shape our pizza dough into a circle. So shaping something is to turn something into the form that we want to cook it into.
Okay, enough talking, more slicing.
Okay, well, we're gonna eat our pizza. KiWi later.